Every year, millions of travelers arrive in Indonesia dreaming of turquoise waters, ancient temples, lush jungles, and some of the most breathtaking islands on Earth. And for most visitors, that's exactly what they find. But not everyone leaves with nothing but great memories. Some travelers lose hundreds of dollars within hours of landing. Others fall victim to scams they never saw coming. A few accidentally break local rules and face fines, legal trouble, or serious embarrassment. What's surprising is that many of these situations don't happen because people are careless. They happen because Indonesia is far more complex than most tourists realize. Behind the postcard perfect beaches and friendly smiles are travel traps, cultural misunderstandings, transportation challenges, and a few little-known risks that can quickly turn a dream vacation into a stressful experience. In this video, you'll discover the biggest travel mistakes, real tourist scams, airport survival tips, cultural warnings, and practical advice every visitor should know before traveling to Indonesia. And make sure you stay until the end, because one mistake catches thousands of visitors every year, and most don't realize they've made it until it's already too late. If you enjoy smart travel advice and want to explore the world with fewer surprises, fewer costly mistakes, and more confidence, be sure to subscribe. Every week, we share practical travel guides, local insights, and real-world tips designed to help you travel safer, smarter, and get the most out of every destination. Now, before you book that flight to Indonesia, let's take a closer look at what this fascinating country is really like. When many travelers think of Indonesia, they picture Bali, beautiful beaches, luxury resorts, digital nomads working from oceanfront cafes. And while those images are certainly real, they represent only a tiny fraction of the country. Indonesia is the world's largest archipelago, made up of more than 17,000 islands stretching thousands of kilometers across Southeast Asia. It's a nation of incredible diversity, with hundreds of ethnic groups, hundreds of local languages, and traditions that can vary dramatically from one region to another. This is where many first-time visitors make a critical mistake. They assume that what is acceptable in one part of Indonesia is acceptable everywhere. In Bali, tourism is deeply integrated into daily life, and locals are generally accustomed to international visitors. But in other parts of the country, social norms can be more conservative. Religious customs may play a larger role in daily activities, and visitor behavior is often observed more closely. Another common misunderstanding is the idea that Indonesia is always inexpensive. While local food and transportation can be remarkably affordable, popular tourist destinations, especially Bali, during peak seasons, can sometimes cost far more than travelers expect. Accommodation, transportation between islands, and last-minute bookings can quickly increase your expenses. Indonesia rewards travelers who arrive prepared and informed, those who don't often discover the country's challenges the hard way. And this is exactly where many travelers encounter their first real problem. Indonesia is generally a welcoming destination, and the vast majority of locals are honest, friendly, and genuinely helpful. But like any major tourist destination, a small number of people make a living by taking advantage of visitors who are unfamiliar with the local environment. Let's start with the scam almost every traveler has heard about, and then move into two that many visitors never see coming. Scam 1. The airport transport trap. Imagine you've just landed after a long international flight. You're tired. Your phone battery is running low. All you want is to get to your hotel. That's exactly why airport transport scams continue to work. Outside major tourist gateways, such as Bali's Ngurah Rai International Airport, some unofficial drivers actively approach arriving passengers before they reach the official transportation area. The conversation often sounds harmless. "Taxi, where are you staying? I can give you a special price." The problem is that the special price is often far from special. Some travelers end up paying 2, 3, or even 4 times the normal fare simply because they don't know the local rates. Others discover additional charges appearing halfway through the journey. The easiest way to avoid this is simple: ignore unsolicited offers and use official airport transportation services or trusted ride-hailing apps. A few extra minutes of patience can save a surprising amount of money. But the next scam is far less obvious, because it doesn't begin with a taxi. It begins with a smile. Scam 2, the friendly local guide. Many travelers arrive in Indonesia hoping to experience authentic local culture. Scammers know this. A visitor is exploring a market, walking near a famous attraction, or relaxing in a public area when a friendly stranger starts a conversation. The person speaks decent English. They seem knowledgeable. They don't ask for money. In fact, they appear genuinely interested in helping. After chatting for a few minutes, they offer to show the traveller a hidden temple, a local art workshop, a traditional craft centre, or a place most tourists never discover. At first, everything feels authentic. Then, the tour gradually leads to a specific shop, gallery, or showroom. The traveller feels welcome. Tea is offered. Staff are friendly. The products look impressive. Many visitors end up purchasing souvenirs, artwork, jewelry, or handmade goods without realizing the prices may be significantly inflated. The friendly guide then receives a commission for bringing customers. Technically, this isn't always illegal, but many travelers later discover they paid far more than necessary. The warning sign is simple. Whenever a stranger seems unusually eager to guide you toward a specific business, ask yourself who benefits from the visit. Sometimes the answer isn't you. And now for a scam that surprises even experienced travelers. Scam 3, the temple donation pressure scam. Indonesia is home to some of the most beautiful religious and cultural sites in Asia. Most temples operate honestly and transparently. However, around certain tourist-heavy areas, visitors occasionally encounter individuals who present themselves as unofficial guides, caretakers, or representatives connected to a religious site. The interaction often begins respectfully. A visitor is told there is a special ceremony taking place, or that they have been given a rare opportunity to witness a cultural tradition. Sometimes they're offered a blessing, a tour, or access to a restricted area. Only after the experience ends does the pressure begin. The traveller is informed that a donation is expected, not a small contribution. Sometimes a surprisingly large amount. Because the request is framed as support for the temple or local community, many visitors feel uncomfortable refusing. The key thing to remember is that legitimate entrance fees and official donations are usually clearly communicated in advance. Unexpected financial pressure at the end of an activity should immediately raise concerns. A good rule of thumb is simple. If money is never mentioned until after the experience is over, proceed carefully. Fortunately, scams like these affect only a small percentage of visitors. The bigger problems often come from mistakes travelers make themselves, and those mistakes can be even more expensive. Avoiding scams is important. But interestingly, many travelers who never encounter a scam still end up facing unnecessary problems during their trip. Why? Because some of the most expensive travel mistakes in Indonesia are entirely self-inflicted. Let's look at the ones that catch visitors most often. Mistake 1. Treating Indonesia like one destination. One of the biggest misconceptions about Indonesia is believing that the entire country works the same way. A traveler spends a week in Bali and assumes the same customs, transportation systems, and expectations apply everywhere else. They don't. Indonesia is incredibly diverse. What feels normal in Bali may be viewed very differently in parts of Sumatra, Lombok, Sulawesi, or Aceh. This misunderstanding can lead to awkward situations, cultural friction, or simply poor travel planning. The smarter approach is to research each destination individually rather than treating Indonesia as a single travel experience. A little preparation can completely change the quality of your trip. Mistake 2. Riding a scooter without proper experience. This is probably one of the most common mistakes among international visitors. The roads look manageable. The rental price is cheap. Everyone else seems to be doing it. So travelers rent a scooter despite having little or no riding experience. Unfortunately, local hospitals and travel insurance providers have seen the consequences for years. Road conditions can vary dramatically. Traffic patterns may be unfamiliar. Weather can change quickly. Even experienced riders sometimes struggle in busy tourist areas. For inexperienced riders, the risks increase significantly. The correct approach is simple. If you are not comfortable operating a scooter in heavy traffic at home, Indonesia is probably not the place to learn. Mistake 3. Ignoring seasonal conditions. Many travelers focus on finding cheap flights without considering when they are actually visiting. Indonesia's dry season and rainy season can create very different travel experiences. A beach destination that looks perfect on social media may experience days of heavy rain during certain months. Boat schedules can be disrupted. Visibility for diving can change dramatically. Outdoor activities may become limited. The mistake isn't visiting during the rainy season. The mistake is arriving without understanding how seasonal conditions affect your plans. Smart travelers research weather patterns before booking rather than after arriving. Mistake 4. Relying entirely on cards and digital payments. Indonesia has become increasingly digital, especially in major tourist destinations. However, many visitors are surprised to discover that cash remains important in numerous situations. Small restaurants, local markets, family-owned businesses, remote islands, transportation providers. Some may not accept international cards at all. Others may experience payment network issues. Travelers who carry only cards sometimes find themselves searching desperately for an ATM at the worst possible moment. The solution isn't carrying large amounts of cash. It's maintaining a balance. Enough local currency for daily flexibility while keeping most funds secure. Mistake 5. Underestimating travel distances. On a map, Indonesia can look deceptively simple. Many first-time visitors create ambitious itineraries packed with islands, flights, ferries, and long road journeys. The result? More time in transit than actually enjoying the destination. Indonesia is enormous. Moving between islands often requires more planning than travelers expect. Experienced visitors usually enjoy Indonesia more by slowing down and exploring fewer places rather than trying to see everything at once. Because even if you avoid all of these mistakes, there's still one place where many travelers encounter problems before their adventure has truly begun: the airport. For many travelers, the most stressful part of an Indonesian trip isn't navigating a crowded market or finding a hidden waterfall. It's the first few hours after landing. Those first hours often determine whether your trip begins smoothly or with unnecessary frustration. Arrival problem 1: immigration and entry requirements. Every year, some travelers arrive in Indonesia assuming they can simply walk through immigration without checking the latest entry requirements. Most visitors have no issues. But some discover missing documents, passport validity problems, or visa misunderstandings only after reaching the airport. One of the most common issues involves passport validity. Many travelers focus on their departure date and forget that numerous countries, including Indonesia, may require passports to remain valid for a significant period beyond arrival. Others fail to verify visa requirements based on their nationality. The solution is simple but important. A few weeks before departure, verify passport validity, check official immigration requirements, and ensure all travel documents are easily accessible before reaching the immigration counter. 5 minutes of preparation can prevent hours of stress. Arrival problem 2: buying the wrong SIM card. After immigration, most travelers immediately start searching for internet access. Navigation, transportation, hotel communication, translation apps. Everything depends on connectivity. This is where many visitors make an expensive mistake. They purchase the first SIM card offered without comparing options or understanding coverage differences. Indonesia's major cities generally have strong mobile coverage, but service quality can vary significantly depending on the island and region you're visiting. A traveler planning to stay in Bali may have very different connectivity needs than someone exploring remote parts of Flores or Raja Ampat. Many experienced travelers now activate an eSIM before departure, allowing them to connect immediately after landing. Others compare airport packages with options available in town before making a decision. The goal isn't finding the cheapest plan. It's finding the plan that actually works where you're going. Arrival problem 3: choosing transportation too quickly. After a long flight, convenience becomes extremely tempting. That's why rushed transportation decisions often lead to problems. The smartest travelers take a few minutes to understand their options before leaving the airport. In many tourist areas, ride-hailing services offer transparent pricing and route tracking. Traditional taxis can also work well when using reputable operators. The mistake isn't choosing one option over another. The mistake is accepting the first offer simply because you're tired. A short pause often saves both money and stress. Arrival problem 4: underestimating ferry and island transport schedules. Many travelers visiting Indonesia dream of island hopping. Bali to Nusa Penida, Lombok to the Gili Islands, Java to Bali, Flores to Komodo National Park. The problem is that transportation schedules don't always operate with the predictability travelers expect. Weather conditions, sea conditions, operational delays, and seasonal demand can affect departures. Visitors who build extremely tight itineraries sometimes miss flights, tours, or hotel reservations because they assume transportation would run exactly on schedule. Experienced travelers leave buffer time. They understand that flexibility is often part of traveling through an archipelago. And once you've successfully navigated airports, ferries, and transportation systems, another challenge awaits: understanding the cultural rules that locals may never explicitly explain but still expect visitors to respect. One of the easiest ways to enjoy Indonesia is also one of the simplest. Respect the local culture. Most visitors are welcomed warmly, and Indonesians are generally known for their hospitality. But every year, some travelers create unnecessary problems because they assume the rules are the same as they are back home. And in some cases, those mistakes have attracted national attention. Cultural Rule 1. Respect sacred sites. Indonesia is home to thousands of temples, mosques, churches, and sacred cultural landmarks. Places such as Bali's temples are not simply tourist attractions. They are active places of worship and an important part of local identity. Over the years, there have been several widely reported incidents involving foreign visitors behaving inappropriately at sacred sites, climbing protected structures, entering restricted areas, or taking disrespectful photos. These actions often trigger public backlash because locals see them not as harmless tourist behavior, but as a lack of respect for their culture and beliefs. Before visiting any religious site, take a moment to learn the local expectations. If an area is restricted, stay out. If special clothing is required, wear it. And if you are unsure whether something is appropriate, ask. Cultural Rule 2. Dress for the environment you're in. Many first-time visitors become accustomed to beach culture in Bali and then forget that Indonesia is a diverse country with different social expectations. What may be perfectly normal on a beach is not always appropriate in villages, religious sites, government buildings, or more conservative regions. This doesn't mean visitors must dress formally everywhere. It simply means understanding the setting. Travelers who adapt to local norms often receive warmer interactions and a more positive experience overall. Cultural Rule 3. Be careful with drones and photography. Indonesia offers incredible opportunities for photography. Volcanoes, rice terraces, ancien temple, remote islands. It's easy to understand why visitors want to capture everything. However, not every location permits unrestricted photography or drone flights. Some religious sites restrict filming. Certain protected areas require permits. And many local communities appreciate being asked before close-up photographs are taken. The mistake isn't taking photos. The mistake is assuming every place operates like an open-air tourist attraction. A little courtesy goes a long way. Cultural Rule 4. Public behavior matters more than many visitors expect. Indonesia is generally relaxed and welcoming, but public behavior still matters. Loud confrontations, aggressive arguments, intoxicated behavior, or actions that attract negative attention can create uncomfortable situations. Most travelers never encounter problems because they behave respectfully. Those who do often discover that being a visitor does not exempt them from local expectations. The goal isn't perfection, it's awareness. Understanding the culture around you often opens doors to experiences that many tourists never have. And sometimes, learning these lessons comes at a cost. One traveler discovered that firsthand during what was supposed to be the highlight of their Indonesian adventure. Several years ago, a traveler from Europe arrived in Indonesia with what seemed like a perfect itinerary. A few days in Bali, a visit to the Gili Islands, then a trip to Komodo National Park before flying home. Like many visitors, he had spent weeks researching beaches, restaurants, and activities. What he hadn't spent much time researching were the practical details. And that's where things began to unravel. A few days into the trip, he rented a scooter to explore independently. The roads looked manageable, and he had seen countless other tourists doing exactly the same thing. The problem was that he had very little riding experience. At home, he rarely used motorcycles. In Indonesia, he suddenly found himself navigating unfamiliar traffic patterns, busy intersections, uneven road surfaces, and weather conditions that changed quickly. One afternoon, while attempting to avoid another vehicle, he lost control of the scooter and crashed. Fortunately, the injuries were not life-threatening, but the consequences were still serious. The traveler required medical treatment, missed several prepaid activities, and spent much of the remainder of his vacation dealing with paperwork, transportation issues, and unexpected expenses. The financial impact was significant. The emotional impact was even worse. Instead of remembering sunsets, island adventures, and unforgettable experiences, much of the trip became associated with stress and frustration. What makes this story important is that it wasn't the result of bad luck. It wasn't a scam. It wasn't crime. It wasn't even particularly unusual. Versions of this situation happen every year across Indonesia. The lesson isn't that visitors should never rent scooters. Many experienced riders do so safely. The lesson is understanding the difference between confidence and preparation. Travelers often spend months planning where they will go. Far fewer spend time thinking about how they will move safely once they arrive. And that's what makes preparation so valuable. The best travel stories rarely come from taking unnecessary risks. They come from having the freedom to enjoy a destination without preventable problems getting in the way. Fortunately, avoiding most travel mistakes doesn't require complicated planning. In fact, some of the most useful advice can be shared in just a few seconds. Before you travel to Indonesia, here are some quick tips that can make your trip smoother, safer, and far less stressful. First, download offline maps before leaving your hotel. Mobile coverage is generally good, but having access to navigation without internet can be incredibly useful. Second, keep both digital and physical copies of important documents, including your passport, travel insurance information, and flight details. Third, carry a reasonable amount of emergency cash in a secure location separate from your main wallet. Fourth, learn a few simple Indonesian phrases. Even basic greetings can create surprisingly positive interactions with locals. Fifth, book popular attractions and transportation in advance during peak travel seasons. Last-minute planning can become expensive very quickly. Sixth, pay attention to weather conditions before booking boat trips or island transfers. Seventh, avoid displaying large amounts of cash or expensive valuables unnecessarily in crowded tourist areas. Eighth, use reputable transportation providers and verify prices whenever possible before beginning a journey. Ninth, stay hydrated. Indonesia's tropical climate can affect visitors more quickly than many expect, especially during outdoor activities. And finally, remember that flexibility is one of the most valuable travel skills you can bring to Indonesia. Things do not always happen exactly according to schedule, and travelers who adapt usually enjoy the experience the most. Indonesia is one of those rare destinations that stays with you long after you've returned home. It isn't just the beaches. It isn't just the volcanoes, the temples, the jungles, or the incredible islands scattered across the horizon. It's the feeling of discovering a country that constantly surprises you. A country where a sunrise hike can lead to a view you'll never forget. Where a simple meal from a local warung can become one of the highlights of your trip. Where every island seems to tell a different story. And that's exactly why so many travelers fall in love with Indonesia. But as we've seen throughout this video, preparation matters. Not because Indonesia is dangerous, not because you should be afraid to visit, but because informed travelers almost always have better experiences. A little research can help you avoid scams. A little cultural awareness can earn respect and create meaningful connections. A few smart decisions can save you money, stress, and unnecessary problems. The travelers who enjoy Indonesia the most are rarely the ones with the most expensive itineraries. They're the ones who arrive curious, prepared, adaptable, and respectful of the people and places they encounter. So before you pack your bags, remember the lessons from this guide. Stay alert without being paranoid. Be confident without becoming careless. Respect local customs. Give yourself flexibility. And most importantly, leave room for unexpected discoveries. Because when approached the right way, Indonesia isn't just another destination on a map. It's an adventure you'll be talking about for years. Safe travels, and we'll see you in the next journey.